sliding smoothly from the world of 1980 SXS prize Lincoln cent, let's fast forward a decade to uncover the secrets of the 1996 penny, another seemingly ordinary copper-plated zinc coin that quietly spawned a clutch of modern rarities. At first glance, this 1-cent piece looks like any circulation survivor, but collectors know the real treasure lies in its hidden quirks and misprints. Stick with me as we peel back the layers of this mid-90s issue, reveal how to spot its most sought-after varieties, and explore why a handful of these humble pennies now trade for sums that would make most change hunters do a double take. The story begins in 1996, a year when the U.S. Mint juggled production between Philadelphia and Denver facilities, each churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. While the general design, a portrait by Victor David Brenner, had been stable for nearly 9 decades, the Mint's push to keep costs down and speed up throughput set the stage for subtle anomalies. That push, coupled with fresh sets of dies, opened the door to double dies repunched mint marks, and even off-metal strikes that have since become the stuff of collector legend. Although most pennies from that year entered everyday commerce, a small percentage slipped through quality controls carrying features that now trigger bidding wars. Spotting a rare 1996 variety hinges on examining the date, lettering, and mint mark under magnification. The most famous is the double die obverse, designated RPM 001, where RPM stands for repunched mint mark by specialists. You might see doubling on the digits 1, 9, and 6, or on the phrases "Liberty and in God we trust." This doubling often appears as a faint shadow, almost like a ghost image hovering beside the primary impression. Another key variety is the repunched mint mark itself. On Denver coins, you may find a small remnant of a previous depunch showing beneath the main mint mark. These RPMs can be subtle enough that casual inspection misses them entirely, but the right tilt of light reveals the telltale outlines. Finally, planchet errors, particularly zinc core splits where the copper plating peels away, create a bicolored or blistered surface that's impossible to ignore. Tracking auction records shows a clear trajectory upward for these modern oddities. Back in 2015, a VF30 double die 1996 sold for about $75. By 2022, similarly graded coins consistently broke $200. At the high end, an MS64 RPM 001 example sold for over $1,800 at a major spring auction in March 2024, setting a new benchmark for modern penny rarities. Even more intriguing are examples with multiple errors. Some coins exhibit both doubling and a laminate split, and these hybrid anomalies can fetch anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 when certified by top graders. The repunched mint mark alone, on an MS65 coin, recently fetched $900 in late 2023. None of these values would have raised eyebrows 2 decades ago. Today they underscore how keen collectors are to secure every twist on what was once regarded as spare change. Beyond the numbers lie the anecdotes that give life to these copper discs. One legendary tale recounts a Pennsylvania teacher who, while sorting classroom pennies for an art project in 1997, spotted an odd shadow next to the date on a handful of coins. Thinking it might make an interesting visual aid, she set them aside, and 3 years later learned they were double dies worth over $1,000 each. Another story involves a coin roll mistakenly shipped overseas to a European dealer who, unfamiliar with U.S. modern errors, cataloged a 1996 RPM 001 as a rare 1920s piece. That mislabeling spurred frantic inquiries until the truth emerged, and the uproar briefly drove auction prices even higher as spotlight turned abroad. Delving into condition-based values reveals dramatic swings. A heavily worn 1996 double die in good G4 may command $20 to $30, still a multiple of face value, but modest compared to higher grades. Move into almost uncirculated -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars, and you're looking at $150 to $300 depending on eye appeal. Mint state coins, MS60 through MS63, regularly climb into the $400 to $700 range, but it's the jump from MS-64 to MS-65 that really jolts the graph. MS-64 pieces often sell for $900 to $1,200, while MS-65 examples command upwards of $1,800. When you layer on repunched mint marks or planchet splits, even a heavily circulated coin can reach four figures if the errors are pronounced. 4 zinc core splits, where the copper plating literally peels or bubbles because of a manufacturing hiccup, values hinge on severity. A minor lamination where a small patch of core shows through might fetch $50 in XF, extremely fine condition. But dramatic splits exposing half the core, especially on coins retaining much of their original luster, can bring $600 or more in AU grade. As these splits effectively create a two-tone look, they stand out in a collection and often become conversation pieces, driving demand even higher. Some collectors chase what's called the rainbow toning effect, where heat exposure or chemical reactions subtly shift copper hues toward pink, blue, or purple. While not strictly in error, certain 1996 pennies display natural toning that makes them visually striking. A near-full sheet of rainbow-toned 1990 SXS sold recently for over $2,200, driven by both the beauty of the color and the coin's modern rarity status. Toning like this can occur when pennies rest on a non-acid-free surface for years, and while opinions vary on desirability, pieces with even attractive toning often outperform their untoned counterparts. A lesser-known variety to watch for is the off-center strike. The mint's high-speed presses occasionally misfeed planchets, resulting in coins where the design is displaced. Off-center coins up to 10% are common and valued mainly as novelties, think $30 to $50 in EF condition. But when displacement exceeds 20%, revealing a crescent of blank planchet, values shoot up. MS examples of a 25% off-center 1996 have brought $400 to $500 at auction. Extreme off-centers over 50%, while rare, can cross the $1,000 threshold, especially if the date remains fully visible. Collectors often share tips on preserving the premium on these modern rarities. For double dies and RPMs, minimal contact is paramount. Even minor scratches can obscure, doubling or mint mark remnants, knocking value down by a factor of 2 or more. Error coins, by contrast, tend to withstand some handling. Collectors prize the novelty above absolute perfection. Still, storing them in inert holders and away from fluctuating temperatures helps maintain any natural toning or laminations that contribute to their appeal. As you rifle through jars of pennies or inherit a stash from relatives, keep a loupe handy and inspect each 1996 carefully. A quick tilt under bright light can unveil a hidden doubling, while a closer look at the mint mark might reveal those faint RPM traces. Even a casual glance at the rim can detect early signs of an off-center feed. And if you spot peeling copper or odd coloration, you could be holding a coin that transforms your perception of spare change. Every 1996 penny in circulation started its life as a humble, day-to-day workhorse of commerce. Yet those that escaped perfection or embraced it in unexpected ways now stand as proof that even the most modern coins carry the potential for discovery. Whether you're bidding at a major auction or trading privately with fellow specialists, that shiny 1996 piece could represent access to a fascinating corner of numismatics where modern minting meets old-school treasure hunting. Keep your eyes sharp, and you might find yourself unlocking the next chapter of this pin-to-copper story. Now that we've uncovered the silvery surprise of the 1994 misplated Lincoln cent, let's turn our attention to its equally intriguing successor, the 1995 penny with its own set of unexpected quirks. While 1994's anomaly hinged on a plating mishap, the 1995 issues reveal a spectrum of errors from double dies to off-center strikes that keep seasoned collectors on the hunt. What began as a routine production year for the Philadelphia and Denver mints morphed into an array of rarities that can transform a handful of pocket change into a collector's prize. Buckle up, because this penny story is anything but ordinary. Back in early 1995, the U.S. Mint faced an uptick in demand for small denomination coins, pushing production lines to their limits. Press operators, eager to maintain high throughput, sometimes overlooked minute die damage or alignment issues. In Philadelphia, a batch of Lincoln cents struck with slightly rotated dies produced coins where Lincoln's profile seems to lean ever so subtly to one side. Meanwhile, in Denver, a limited run of doubled die, obverse, delivered crisp, ghost-like echoes of Lincoln's visage and the date. What started as the Mint striving for efficiency turned into a gold mine for error specialists. To spot a double die 1995 penny, you'll want to examine the date and the motto "In God We Trust." Under a loupe or magnifying glass, look for repeated lines, shadows of the numerals or letters that almost overlap the primary strike. The effect is subtle, like two slightly misaligned impressions layered together. In contrast, off-center strikes are glaring. Lincoln's bust or the date might be pushed toward the rim, leaving a blank crescent of metal where the die never made contact. Both varieties are fascinating to hold because they capture a moment when precision slipped. Auction records for these 1995 varieties have climbed steadily over the past decade, mirroring the growing enthusiasm for modern errors. A 1995 D double die penny graded MS66 by a top service brought $1,200 in a 2021 sale, surprising many who hadn't pegged post-1960 errors as so lucrative. In 2023, a rarer MS67 specimen crossed the block at $2,800, solidifying its status among the century's most desirable Lincoln errors. Off-center strikes command a wide range. Slight misalignments, 10 to 12% off-center, in uncirculated grades trade for $150 to $300, while dramatic errors, over 50% off-center, can fetch upwards of $1,500 when flawlessly preserved. One memorable tale involves a Kansas coin dealer who pulled a 1995 P off-center cent from a bag of freshly minted rolls. The die was misaligned just enough that Lincoln's coat dropped off the edge, leaving most of his face intact, but pegging the strike at roughly 40% misplacement. When word got out, bidding jumped to nearly $1,800 for the MS65 specimen. The dealer later admitted he nearly paid face value before spotting the eccentric outline of Lincoln's silhouette under a bright lamp. Beyond their error status, 1995 pennies also offer interesting subvarieties tied to minting processes. A small number display faint die cracks radiating from Lincoln's shoulder into the field, evidence that aging dies can yield unintended artwork. Others bear repunched mint marks, where the D of Denver was struck twice in slightly different positions. While these won't rival the top-tier double dies, they still command a premium over regular strikes, typically $25 to $50 in circulated grades and $75 to $150 uncirculated, depending on visibility. Condition plays a pivotal role in valuing these modern rarities. In grades VF20 to XF40, an off-center 1995 penny might bring in $50 to $100, reflecting its eye-catching misstrike, but also visible contact with circulation. Jump into $50 to MS60 territory, and values typically rise to $150 to $300 thanks to sharper details and minimal surface wear. Once you reach MS63 or MS64, you can expect $400 to $800 depending on exact centering and luster. Premiums soar above MS65. An MS66 double die might command $1,200 to $1,500, while off-center errors of similar grade can hit $2,000 when they exhibit strong contrast and a well-defined border. Collectors often compare the 1995 double die to the legendary 1955 double die Lincoln cent, another error famous for its stark misalignment. Though the 1995 version lacks the dramatic doubling seen in 55, it remains significant because it arrived in an era when mint errors were thought to be nearly eradicated. That perceived safety net only heightened the thrill of discovery. A coin minted when every process was supposedly perfected still managed to surprise everyone. For those hunting these errors, the best approach is a two-pronged search. First, review any 1995 pennies in your circulation stash under a bright LED flashlight. Offset strikes are often visible to the naked eye once you know where to look. Next, invest in a good loupe, 10 times magnification, and examine the date and motto on coins from polished, uncirculated sets. Auction websites and specialized error coin forums often feature high-resolution images, but remember that lighting and angle can exaggerate doubling. Authentic examples reveal consistent doubling across multiple letters, not just a stray shadow near the rim. One underappreciated aspect of the 1995 off-center pennies is their appeal to educational collections. Museums and universities sometimes acquire these coins to demonstrate modern minting challenges and quality control lessons. They serve as tactile reminders that even in high-tech facilities, mechanical tolerances and human oversight can yield surprises. For collectors, that dual appeal, both numismatic and pedagogical, adds another layer of value beyond the dollar figures. Early 2025 has seen renewed interest in 1995 errors as baby boomer collectors refocus on coins from their formative years. Online marketplaces report a 20% uptick in searches for 1995 penny error compared to the previous year, signaling that this generation is rediscovering treasures they might have overlooked in their youth. At major spring shows, dealers noted brisk sales of graded 1995 double dies and off-centers, with newcomers eager to snag pieces before prices climb even higher. Beyond the errors already mentioned, there's a handful of 1995 pennies with weak strikes, flatter impressions where Lincoln's features look softly etched rather than crisply raised. While technically a strike quality issue rather than a mint error, these weak strikes intrigue specialists who study die pressure and planchet hardness. In circulated grades, they trade for $5 to $15, but top uncirculated examples can reach $50 when the lack of detail is pronounced and consistent across multiple coins. Condition census data suggest that roughly 1 in every 5,000 1995 pennies exhibits a noticeable error, whether double die, off-center, or die crack. That rarity rate places them squarely in the sweet spot for error collectors, scarce enough to feel special, but not so rare that they're unattainable. In practical terms, if you've got a stash of 10,000 Lincoln cents from 1995, you stand a good chance of uncovering at least one anomaly. Interested collectors often debate whether to keep these pennies raw or slab them with a grading service. Raw examples allow you to feel the edges and see the luster up close, but third-party grading can dramatically boost market value, especially for high grades. Slabbed MS66 double dies and off-centers routinely attract bidders who trust the encapsulation. If you plan to sell, investing $20 to $30 per coin in grading can yield returns that far outstrip the cost, provided the error and preservation are top-notch. That wraps up our look at the fascinating errors and varieties of the 1995 Lincoln cent, its birth in high-speed minting lines, the telltale double dies and off-center strikes, record-setting auctions, condition-driven price tiers, and the community stories that make these coins more than just metal. Hopefully next time you roll pennies, you'll see them not just as pocket change, but as possible keys to numismatic treasure.